Leading cancer researcher Professor Thomas Seyfried has made a bold claim. According to him, in just the last 5 years, science has made astonishing breakthroughs, discoveries that could help people not only prevent cancer, but, in many cases, treat it effectively. And yet, despite all this progress, cancer continues to ravage the world. It remains one of humanity. Greatest killers, a disease that takes millions of lives every year. So, why haven't these breakthroughs changed that? Professor Seyfried believes the problem lies in the system itself. The standard of care, he says, is written in stone. Doctors aren't encouraged to question it, only to follow it. If you walk into a hospital with lung cancer, breast cancer, colon cancer, or bladder cancer, the treatment is already decided for you. Surgery, radiation, chemotherapy, maybe immunotherapy. The same pattern repeated endlessly. And sometimes, by sheer grace, patients survive. But many don't. In the United States alone, over 1,600 people die from cancer every single day. In China, the number is closer to 8,000 daily deaths. Across the globe, cancer is expected to soon overtake heart disease as the leading cause of death. But according to Seyfried, the tragedy continues not only because of flaws in the medical system, but because most people still don't understand what cancer truly is. Around 90% of people believe cancer begins as a genetic disease. In reality, he argues, it's a metabolic disease, one that begins when the cell's energy factories, the mitochondria, stop working properly. What we're doing to ourselves, Seyfried warns, is putting millions at risk for cancer. Today's lifestyle is a perfect storm. Sedentary habits, excess processed carbohydrates, chronic stress, poor sleep, loneliness, exposure to microplastics, and forever chemicals. Together, these factors are damaging the mitochondria inside our cells. And that damage is spreading faster than ever, especially among younger people. The result? More cases, more deaths, and a future where cancer becomes almost inevitable unless something changes. To understand Seyfried's solution, you first need to understand how cells make energy. Mitochondria are the power plants of every cell. When they're damaged, the cell loses its ability to use oxygen properly and switches to an ancient survival mode, a process called fermentation, and that's where cancer begins. Cancer cells survive and grow by fermenting two key fuels, glucose, sugar, and glutamine, an amino acid. If you want to stop feeding cancer, Seyfried says, these are the two you must restrict. Here's the crucial discovery. Cancer cells can't use fat for fuel. That is the foundation of metabolic therapy, a strategy that doesn't just help prevent cancer, but can also help fight it. By consuming natural fats and reducing carbohydrates, the body enters a state called therapeutic ketosis, where it begins converting fat into ketones for energy. Healthy cells can thrive on ketones, but cancer cells cannot. If your mitochondria remain healthy, Seyfried explains, you're not going to get cancer. It's really that simple, but that doesn't mean eating tubs of fat. Our ancestors understood this balance naturally. When they hunted large animals, they didn't just eat muscle meat. They prized the bone marrow and organ meat, rich in essential fats and nutrients. They lived on whole, nutrient-dense foods that supported mitochondrial health. What killed ancient humans were injuries and infections, not cancer. They had no antibiotics, no surgeons, no hospitals. But today, our modern world has replaced those threats with something worse: chronic metabolic disease. Now we die from what Seyfried calls conditions of energy abuse. Type 2 diabetes, cancer, hypertension, cardiovascular disease. All of them trace back to the same root: damaged mitochondria. And, in Seyfried's words, to develop cancer, you have to damage and abuse your mitochondria. And we're redoing exactly that every single day. In every healthy cell, energy is produced through oxygen, a process known as respiration. But in a damaged cell, something remarkable and dangerous happens. When the mitochondria fail, the cell switches to fermentation to survive. And according to Professor Thomas Seyfried, that's the moment cancer begins. Only cells that can activate this fermentation machinery can become cancerous. That's why neurons in the brain and heart muscle cells almost never develop cancer. They simply cannot ferment. They rely entirely on oxygen. But cells in the liver, colon, breast, and other organs can make this switch. And when they do, cancer takes hold. So, how can we lower our risk, maybe even bring it close to zero? Seyfried says the first tool is right in front of us: our diet. Start with the basics. Cut out the foods that feed cancer: sugar, sweets, bread, potatoes, and refined carbohydrates. These are the fuels cancer loves. Instead, nourish your body with healthy fats: butter, olive oil, avocados, eggs, fatty fish, organ meats, and non-starchy vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, and spinach. This isn't a trend, it's a shift. A shift from burning sugar to burning ketones, a fuel cancer cells can't use. When your body begins to rely on ketones, you enter a state of therapeutic ketosis, and your internal chemistry changes completely. To measure this, Seyfried developed a simple but powerful tool: the Glucose Ketone Index, or GKI. It's the ratio between your blood sugar and ketone levels, and it can tell you exactly how cancer-friendly your body's environment is. Here's the shocking part. For most people on a typical Western diet, GKI levels are above 50. A perfect breeding ground for disease. But when the GKI falls below 2.0, cancer cells lose their ability to survive. Monitoring this is easier than ever. Devices like Keto Mojo, available online, let you prick your finger, measure glucose and ketones, and instantly see your metabolic zone. In Seyfried's words, let the GKI tell you what you can and cannot eat. Become your own experiment. The second key is movement. Exercise isn't optional, it's essential. When you move your body, your muscles literally pull sugar out of the bloodstream, starving cancer cells of their favorite fuel. You don't need to run marathons. Brisk walking, swimming, or light strength training are enough, as long as you stay consistent. Each movement session helps lower glucose and glutamine levels, two lifelines for tumor growth. The third pillar is fasting. Whether through intermittent fasting or occasional water fasting, giving your body time without food triggers a deep internal reset. During fasting, glucose levels plummet and ketones rise, dropping the GKI below that critical 2.0 threshold, where cancer cells begin to die off. But Seyfried offers a clear warning. If you've already been diagnosed with cancer, don't attempt fasting alone. These protocols must be carefully managed under medical supervision. It might seem hard to believe that something as simple as diet, movement, and fasting could be a potent weapon against cancer. But this isn't speculation or hype. It is the product of decades of research by one of the world's leading cancer experts, Professor Thomas Seyfried. He's not selling miracle cures or pills. He's revealing a truth hidden in plain sight, that by protecting your mitochondria, you can protect your life.